Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Supervisors Skalitsky and Grady have called in and are excused. Supervisor Brunig. Thank you. At this time, we'll open the floor up to citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to speak? Anybody wishing to speak? Anybody wishing to speak? Seeing no one, citizens' comments are closed. Announcements of the chair. I just have one. I want to make sure everybody got the email from Supervisor Johnson about our first small business task force meeting. That'll be the 22nd, Monday the 22nd, 6:30 to 8. If you have any questions, you can contact either one of us. That's all I have at this time. We'll open it up to supervisor reports. Supervisor Rose.
At the last meeting of the county board, I announced that there would probably be an expenditure in the forthcoming budget of between $450,000 and $600,000 attributable to the application of the new Federal Health Care Act that we would be considering as part of our budget and a new addition. Since that Health Care Act has now been delayed for 1 year, it is anticipated that there will be a $150,000 expenditure in healthcare taxes, essentially, instead of $450,000 to $600,000 added to our budget for additional healthcare costs attributable to that new law. So again, $150,000 will be added, it is anticipated, instead of $450,000 to $600,000.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no other supervisor reports.
County Executive Appointments. 10, Dr. Kurt W. Bauer to serve on the Kenosha County Land Information Council.
Refer to the PDEC committee.
11, Michael Tarasik to serve on the Kenosha County Local Emergency Planning Committee.
Refer to Judiciary and Law Committee.
12, Mark Starzyk to serve on the Kenosha County Housing Authority Board.
Refer to the Finance Committee.
13, Brian A. Wolf to serve on the Kenosha County Workforce Development Board.
Refer to the Human Services Committee.
New Business Ordinance 1 reading. 8, from Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee regarding Boys LLC, John Tisdale, owner-agent, requests rezoning from B2 Community Business District to R4 Urban Single Family Residential District on tax parcel located in the town of Randall. Brunig, yes. Decker, yes. Underhill, yes. Dodge, yes. Skalitsky, yes.
Supervisor Brunig.
Move ordinance number 8.
Ordinance number 8 has been moved by Supervisor Brunig, seconded by Supervisor Underhill. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is located on the north side of Bloomfield Road, County Trunk Highway F, approximately 700 feet west of the intersection of 392nd Avenue, and is commonly known as 39408 Bloomfield Road, Randall, Wisconsin. The rezoning from B2 Community Business District to R4 Urban Single Family Residential District would allow for a conversion of the structure to a single family residence. The town of Randall recommended approval of the request.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance number 8 passes.
Policy Resolution 1, reading, 2, required from the Executive Committee, a resolution regarding the sale of alcohol on county golf courses. Gantz, yes. Kubicki, yes. Rose, yes. Elberman, yes. Hallman, yes. Esposito, yes. Brunig, yes.
And it's just a first reading, so.
Resolution 28 from Finance Administration Committee and authorizing resolution approving the Consolidated Kenosha County Revolving Loan Fund Program Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund Manual. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Grady, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, excused. Molinaro, yes.
That should be Resolution 29.
It is.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move with the resolution.
Resolution 29's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. What you have in front of you is the authorization of revisions of the manual for the Consolidated Kenosha County Revolving Loan Fund Program. This contains, as you can see, all of the provisions with respect to our loan fund, which is administered by the Kenosha Area Business Alliance. The changes are not substantial. They are more in the nature of updating. This is something that is done from time to time, largely consistent with direction from the federal government. I trust that you've read this, and we would respond to any questions, and a representative from CABA is with us to answer some more specific type of questions that you might have. But this is, I say again, this is a manual that we currently have and operate under, and this is their rules of operation with some updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no lights, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 29 passes.
Resolution 30 from Finance Administration Committee, a resolution providing for the sale of not to exceed $9,765,000 general obligation promissory notes. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Grady, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
I would, on behalf of the Finance Committee, move resolution number 30.
Resolution 30's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Kohlmeyer. Supervisor Rose.
If you recall, this resolution was initially adopted by this board in November of 2012. It funds the 2013 budget capital projects such as the Highway Department works and other types of capital projects which are all listed in the budget. It is anticipated that these notes would be sold about around August 20th next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no lights, this is a matter for bonding, so we will do a roll call on it, so there is a record. Thank you. Resolution 30 passes unanimously.
Resolution 31 from Finance and Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing perimeters for the sale of not to exceed $16,400,000 general obligation refunding bonds. Copy of this resolution was not included in your packets, but you should have one on your desk now. Rose, yes. Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
I would move on behalf of the Finance Committee the resolution before you.
Resolution 31's been moved by Supervisor Rose, seconded by Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you, and let me first explain why this resolution and the materials supporting it were not included in the packet for your review prior to this meeting. At the last Finance Committee, we were discussing the resolution that you just adopted authorizing the sale of the $9,765,000 of promissory notes. During the course of that discussion, our advisor Mr. Harrigan from Ehlers, told us about the resolution that is before you this evening called a parameters resolution. And it was his recommendation that we adopt such a resolution for refinancing of certain type of county debts. And he said that other counties had adopted similar type resolutions consistent with their Build America bond type programs that they've had over the years, and suggested that we do likewise. He at least persuaded us that there was some sense of urgency because the bond market was in a flux situation. The Congress had acted and had reduced the subsidy for what we once issued in this county as Build America bonds. If you recall, these bonds were issued at various times in 2004 and 2009, and that the interest rate was subsidized by the federal government, some 35% to 45% reimbursement of interest rates. So this at the time was a good way for us to save some money. This was a program as part of to fight the economic recession. However, with the new sequestration program, Congress chose to reduce this 35% or 45% reimbursement to 8.5%, from 5% to 8.7%. And the fear, Mr. Harrigan said, was that this might be the subsidy might be reduced further than the 5 to 8.7%. So he suggested that we act upon this resolution tonight. The Finance Committee met at 6:30, and if you look at the resolution, what we are essentially doing is authorizing the county executive, the finance director, to meet and consider when it would be appropriate to call the 2009 notes and the 2004 Build America bonds, and if there was a significant savings or at least a break-even point, so that we would not be losing money further based upon what we projected or what Mr. Harrigan thought might very well be a future further reduction in the subsidy. Thus, this resolution is before you this evening, as opposed to some other meeting in the future where you might more want to read it, the materials ahead of the meeting. What we would do right now would be, if we were going to have the 2004 Build America bonds recalled, there would be probably a net savings to the county of $100,000. And if there was a recall of the 2009 notes, Build America bond notes, there would be a slight break even. Now, Mr. Harrigan, on behalf of Ehlers, is recommending that we do this because at least the thought is that if we don't do this now, the savings will not be there for the 04 bonds. And with respect to the 09, there won't be a slight break even, that we will not be in as favorable position in the future if those projected reductions of 35% and 45% were reduced even further than it is projected under the current sequestration status. The savings parameters are set forth in the resolution. I've tried to kind of, in ordinary terms, suggest to you that what the savings parameters would be, so that the discretion that we're reposing in the county executive and finance director is really a discretion based upon these financial parameters that I have suggested here this evening. I think that summarizes essentially what we're doing with this refunding. We've done refundings in the past. The refundings in the past have all been successful and has savings for the county. If there are any other questions, I'll try to answer them. If I can't, Mr. Harrigan is here to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Seeing no lights, as this also pertains to bonding, we will have a roll call on it. Resolution 31 passes unanimous.
Resolution 32 from Judiciary and Law Enforcement Committee, a resolution regarding an activity control license, Will Rock Fest at Shadow Hill Ranch. Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington, yes. Montemiro, yes. Noble, yes.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Resolution 32.
Resolution 32 has been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Noble. Supervisor Esposito.
This is an activity control license for Will Rock the Ranch, WIL, an outdoor festival held at the grounds where Country Thunder is held. It's a one-day event. Saturday, August 24th. Gates open at right around 8 a.m. and it wraps up in one day in the early morning of Sunday. Sheriff recommended approval through the PDEC committee. I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 32 passes.
Communications from Andy M. Bueller regarding future items scheduled before the Planning, Development, and Extension Education Committee.
Receive and file that communication.
Supervisor comments, Supervisor Hallman.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick things before we zip out of here. I sort of wanted to update the board on what it is I've been doing, because I've been working quite a bit. So I know that folks are aware that I'm headed to the National Association of Counties Conference, and I wanted to handle this a bit differently. So what you have on your desks is actually the list of workshops that I intend to attend. And there's a couple of them that I want to draw your attention to because they jumped out at me as things that I thought that might be exceptionally helpful. On the back of the first page, there's one called Beyond Civility, Communication for Effective Governance. I thought it might be good to attend that. There's another one here on page 2, using interactive technology to drive citizen engagement. There's a lot of counties, well, I won't say a lot, but there's certainly been a number of them that have utilized social media, they've utilized their own websites, and have started to interact with their citizens a bit differently. One of the analogies that's used is that government is often like a vending machine. You put something in and you get something out. Folks have started to turn that idea on its head and do some very different and some very cool things. And there are things that definitely that we could take a look at and we could adopt as well. Another workshop that I thought that jumped out at me is the Great Divide, the difference between leadership and management. We talk a lot about managing and whether or not we're micromanaging. And sometimes I wonder, in our management, do we leave room for vision? Do we leave room to ask the question, where are we going? And how much of that does that actually drive our conversation and our thought process? And so those are some of my thought process behind going to some of those workshops. So I just wanted you all to know what I was going to be up to when I was there. I thought it would be a good idea, so I decided I'd print it out and give it to you. Second thing I wanted to mention tonight is our foreclosure program is now having its 3rd birthday. It's been a resounding success. You've got the statistics there on your desk. For those of you that are unfamiliar, the mediation program was started back in July of 2011. It's entirely budget neutral. It's paid for by user fees and is strictly voluntary. Homeowners are notified of the existence of the program when they receive the summons and complaint. There's a hot pink sheet of paper, and no, I did not pick the color, that is included as part of that summons and complaint saying they have access to voluntary mediation. So you have the statistics there. We administer the program for both Racine as well as Kenosha counties. The foreclosure mediation has been something that's been in many counties across Wisconsin. I think all of them at this point have it. We were the last high-density area to not have one. And so because we jumped on it and we were so close to Racine, we can literally administer the program for both. And so you have the statistics there as to how many people have filed, what the outcomes of those have been. I do want to note that I've worked really, really, really hard to try to obtain some information about the size of the loan that people have left unpaid. I say that because I've tried to do some economic analysis work, really trying to utilize that number. I called the U.S. Treasury, they didn't have it. I called the Federal Reserve, they didn't have it. I called HUD, they didn't have it. I called the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau, they didn't have it either. And I called some consumer advocacy groups as well. Apparently, it's a number that no one seems to be tracking. But for those of you that are curious, for the economic impact, for the numbers that I am able to get, homeowner costs are roughly $10,000, which comes from a HUD study in 1995. The cost was readjusted in 2010. That figure does not include the possibility of higher cost housing in the future due to a poor credit rating. Local government costs for foreclosure, $6,200. This is suggesting that the property is vacant for a time, that there might be modest criminal activity, and the property at auction, the costs there are administrative and legal fees. They do not include property tax losses, unpaid property taxes not recovered, utility taxes foregone, unpaid water bills, or property maintenance. The estimated cost to surrounding property owners is $13,900. That estimate is that a foreclosure reduces surrounding property values by 0.9%, and that's assuming an average property value of $171,100, which was the average value of the sales price of an existing home nationwide in 2010. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. You can take a copy of my notes for some of those numbers if you'd like. Just see me after the meeting, I can get that to you. The other thing on your desk that you have is something I've been working on now for quite some time. About, what I would say last year or the year before, whenever it was that we changed out our voting system, we were asked to take some steps in terms of what it is that we'd like to see, where it is that we would want to go. Some people weighed in more heavily than others, but that's a question that I've continued to ask. What else can we do with technology? What are some areas that we can grow in? What can we do differently? And so after doing some reading and visiting NACO, there's a number of things that have come to my attention that it's possible for us to do. And so what I'm working on is essentially trying to break those up sort of by topical area, in the form of a small white paper. It's going to be very, very light reading. I wanted to make sure that at the end of all of that, that there was actually a digital component that explained a lot of that, because I think that'd be a lot more engaging than just reading and reading and reading and reading. I want it to be more interactive. So that's something I've been working on since March of this year. It's almost finished, but not quite. I've set a release date for August 1st. Hopefully I'm able to hit that. I've got 7 working days for myself to really dig in and try to complete this. So I just wanted you to get a letter so that you all know that this is coming up. It's nothing that's going to cost us any money, but there are some things that many of you have talked about doing. So for example, to be entirely paperless. There's going to be a pathway in this forward to do that. Some of you have mentioned like iPads or tablet PCs for county board supervisors. Others of you think that's a horrible idea. This is hopefully going to give us some guidance as to how we might do that in a way that's not only constructive for us and healthy in our dialogue, but also so that citizens see the value in it, so that there's really minimal or no political risk in terms of taking something like that on. The other thing I want to mention is I was asked by Alderman Anthony Kennedy of the city of Kenosha, and you might notice in the next couple of months there'll be some things that I attempt to do in tandem with city government. We've been having some conversations legislatively, which is nice, something I've been an advocate of for a while. He submitted a resolution to his city council regarding the Supreme Court ruling on the civil rights voting legislation. Basically, I copied the exact same language, didn't change anything except for the end, because we're not the city of Kenosha, we're the county of Kenosha. Basically, all it does is it asks the Congress to reauthorize the act, but also to put in the formula that the Supreme Court said. Basically kicked it back to them and said, you need to come up with the formula as to how to implement this law. And so that's essentially all that it does, is it's a petition to Congress to say, come up with the formula, make some time on your calendar and pass something. It doesn't talk about what it's going to look like, it just says, make the formula and pass something. The last thing I want to mention is that there's been a push from some folks in our community that Kenosha County should provide domestic partner benefits. Currently, we do not. The city of Kenosha did this, I want to say, in their last year. I don't think they did it as part of their budget. But the city of Kenosha has it, we don't. This is one of those things that really, quite frankly, surprised me. I sort of assumed that workplaces now just did that. I guess I'm of an era where we sort of assume that's to be a given. So we don't have it. It's something that we can do here. The budgetary impact, I would expect, although I can't comment on it right now because I don't have the data, would be incredibly minimal. It's something that once done is many times more attractive to people who are seeking employment. I know we talk often about how we applaud the talent that we have currently on staff. There's no reason why we can't do this and recruit other folks, get them to turn their attention towards us, who are equally as talented, if not more so, than folks that we already have here, because we'd be providing this. So that's something that I'll be working on and bringing to your attention. Hopefully, I'd like to think by December. We'll see what happens. So that's just what I'm up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman.
Ready? Approval of the July 2nd, 2013 minutes by Supervisor Montemiro.
Move to approve.
The July 2nd, 2013 minutes have been moved by Supervisor Montemiro, seconded by Supervisor Dodge. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. It's been moved by Supervisor Vice Chair Kubicki, seconded by Supervisor Decker to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?